Hi everyone, today we're going to be covering Session 1, Lesson 1 from your Ready Math Workbook. We'll be covering pages 5 through 7, and our object of our lesson of today is that we're going to explore the volume of a solid figure. So let's get going. You can go ahead and turn to page 5 in your math workbook. During our lesson today, I really want you to think about what does volume measure? And as we do our work today, you're going to kind of start to get an idea of what exactly volume measures. Before we can talk about volume, there's a few vocabulary words that we need to learn. So let's go ahead and go through our lesson and we'll find out what those are. Number 1 says, a plane figure is a two-dimensional figure. Explain how to measure the area of the plane figure using the unit square. So a two-dimensional figure means that it has two sides. It has four sides, but it only has a length and a width. It does not have a height that would make it in 3D. So this is what would be considered being in 2D. And it's similar to a piece of paper. There's no sides to it. It's just a thin piece of paper. And when you're measuring a 2D figure, it would be a 2D shape. You would use area. Because you could find the area of this shape because you could find its length and its width. But you could not find volume because it only has two measurements that you use to measure. So now when we're looking at this figure here, how could we use this unit square to measure the plane figure? So right now I want you to pause the video and then take a guess of about how many unit squares would fit in that plane figure. All right. If this were me and I'm looking at this unit square, I would guesstimate that if I drew those unit squares into this larger plane figure, I could probably fit about 4 unit squares inside of that plane figure. The way that you want to do is you want to take this unit square and you want to cover this plane figure with no gaps and no overlaps. You want to cover it completely, but not where you're leaving any open space or you're covering the two shapes on top of each other. Number 2 says, a solid figure is a three-dimensional figure. The volume of a solid figure is the amount of space inside the figure. A unit cube is a cube that has side lengths of 1 unit. How do you think you could use unit cubes to measure the volume of the solid figure? Go ahead and pause the video and write down how you think you could use unit cubes to fill the solid figure. All right, I think that we could fill this solid figure similarly to how we filled the plane figure. The only difference is that these cubes would be filling the inside of this solid figure. And if you watch, this solid figure is about to transform. And just like that, our solid figure has gone from being one large figure to being a solid figure that holds many of these unit cubes on the inside of the figure. Now so this solid figure is considered to be in 3D or a three-dimensional shape because it has a length, a width, and a height. What I like to think of it as is if a unit square or a plane figure is like a flat sheet of paper, a solid figure is a figure that can hold water because the solid figure has there's water in there, I don't want to spill it. It has a length, a width, and a height. So this can hold water. This piece of paper cannot hold water. If I poured this water on the piece of paper, it would just fall out all over our math worksheet. So remember that a 3D figure that measures volume can hold water. A 2D figure that does not hold water, so a 2D figure cannot be a solid figure. Go ahead and turn to page 6. Now, if we're looking at number 3, it says, a rectangular prism is a solid figure with 6 rectangular sides or faces. The 2 boxes shown below are identical rectangular prisms with unit cubes inside of them. So they both have the same length, width, and height. As you can see, they have the same length, width, and height. Circle the diagram that you think shows the correct way to use the unit cubes to measure the volume of the rectangular prism. Cross out the incorrect way, then explain your choice. So which of these figures, way 1 or way 2, is the correct way to measure the volume of this shape, of this rectangular prism? Which of these is correct? Make sure you circle it. All right. I really hope that you put a circle around way 2. If you did, give yourself a pat on the back. And that you crossed out way 1. The reason that way 2 is the best way or the correct way, is because we have filled this entire rectangular prism with unit cubes where there is no overlapping. That means they don't go on top of each other. And there's no empty space. That's how we know that the volume of this rectangular prism would be the correct way. Here, we see that there's all this empty space. These cubes are not spaced so that they fill all of the area inside of this rectangular prism. Number 4 says, a unit cube is said to have 1 cubic unit of volume. Cubic units are used to measure the volume of a solid figure. What is the volume of each unit cube inside the rectangular prism you circled in problem 3? So when we're looking up at way 2 in problem 3, I want you to look and I want you to tell me what would be the volume of just one of these cubes. Remember, it says here, a unit cube is said to have 1 cubic unit of volume. So each of these cubes has 1 cubic unit, a volume of 1 cubic unit. So if each cube is 1 cubic unit, then how many cubic units is this shape here? Go ahead and write down what you think. Okay, let's find out. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. The volume of this rectangular prism is 12 cubic units. Now, I want you to think, and you're going to write yourself, you're going to write out an answer here that you're going to come up with on your own. Why do you use cubic units instead of square units to find the volume of a solid figure? Remember, a square unit is used to measure a plane figure, and a cubic unit is used to measure a solid figure. So why do you use cubic units instead of square units to find the volume of a solid figure? I'm going to help you out with a sentence frame. I use cubic units to measure volume because. And then I want you to finish this sentence and tell me why you use cubic units to measure volume instead of square units. If you need a little bit more time, go ahead and pause the video here, and then just hit play when you're ready to move on. All right, hopefully you finished your sentence. If not, hit pause and then come back and finish it. I want to just go over really quickly that I believe that the reason that you would use cubic units to measure volume instead of square units is because square units only work if you're measuring an object that is in 2D or a plane figure. A solid figure has a length, a width, and a height. So you would need to use a cubic unit to measure because it also has a length, a width, and a height. A unit square is missing one of those sides. It has a length and a width, but it does not have a height. All right, please turn to page 7. I'm just going to do this top vocabulary part with you, and then you'll complete the rest on your own for your homework assignment, or your independent classwork, I should say. So, if we're looking at a cubic unit, what is a cubic unit? It is the volume of a cube that measures 1 unit on each edge. What do we know about a cubic unit? We know that we use cubic units to measure volume because there's a length, a width, and a height. An example of a cubic unit would be a cube that measures 1 cubic unit or 1 unit on each side. Your length, your width, and your height all equal 1 unit. That would be a cubic unit. If we had a picture that looked like this, it would be 1 unit on the width, 1 unit in the height, but then instead this one is going to have more than 1 unit in the length. This rectangular prism has a volume of 3 cubic units because there is 1 cubic unit, 2 cubic units, 3 cubic units. This rectangular prism has a volume of 4 cubic units. One, 2, 3, 4. A way that you can measure how many units are in that cube would be, you could, in this case, since we only have 1 unit deep, we could count how many faces we see on the front of the unit. Since this side is 1, then we know that it's only 1 layer deep, so we could count 1, 2, 3, 4. We wouldn't need to count these other sides because those are the other sides of this same cube. So this is the front side of this cube, the front, the top, and the side of 1 cube. With that, that is all we are doing for today to compare volume or to explore volume. I hope that you enjoyed this lesson. As always, if you have any questions, you can always email and ask.